Hi, I'm Daniel, a student at the Donna Aldridge Community Academy, and today, as part of the Aldridge Foundation's Sport and Fitness World of Work Week, I'm joined by Elliot, a student at UTC at Media City UK, and Anisu, a student at Duke's Aldridge Academy, to chat to four-time Olympian Donna Fraser, OBE, to find out about her experiences as an athlete and the important work that she's now doing as UK's athletics, equality, diversity, and engagement lead. We've got lots of questions to get through, so we'll kick off right away.
So, Donna, how easy was the transition from professional athlete to your current role as Equality, Diversity and Engagement Lead?
I'm probably one of the interesting characters in sport whereby I worked alongside my athletics career, so I always worked. I had a great employer in EDF Energy, which some of you may get your electricity and gas supplied by, and they offered me an opportunity to work part-time alongside working and my athletics career up until the 2000 Olympics. So building up a career alongside my athletics was just ideal. So when I did finish my athletics and retire for good and hang up my spikes, it wasn't too much of a difficult jump. But I know there are many athletes out there that struggle, hence why I'm such an advocate for athletes who are pursuing a sporting career to have something else to fall back on. It's really important because it can be quite difficult.
What does your job as the Equality, Diversity, Engagement Lead actually entail?
I know it's a really long title, isn't it, Elliot? I always shorten it and I just say ED&I, it's just easier. So if you have another question with that in there, just say ED&I. So yeah, I started at UK Athletics in 2017. It was the first for that NGB, so the national governing body, to have this role. And I had two areas that I needed to focus on. One was to embed our core values and behaviours, who we want to be seen, how we want to behave as an organisation through all our policies, practices, etc. And then the other side was to deliver and lead on the equality standard in sport, which doesn't mean much to many of the listeners. What that basically is a set of criteria which has been led by UK Sport to look at us as an organisation again through an ED&I lens and identify the areas not only where we're doing great stuff through an ED&I lens, but also the areas of improvement. So that could be something as simple as having an equality policy. Is that up to speed with the current legislation? And also the training available to ensure that we're really upskilling the organisation and people within.
So obviously there's probably quite a lot of people listening to here that are probably quite to do with sport. What's one way that you have always kept motivated to keep pushing in your career?
Well, you and Anisu will know, because you've done sport. You set your goals very early on, what you want to achieve, and that's what motivates me. That's what gets me up in the morning. Even now that I'm not running anymore, I want to make a difference within the organisation and have an impact not only as a sport, but also the people that work within the organisation. So that is my motivation. I always set goals. I think having goals and aims and ambitions and all of that, no matter how young you are, it's really important to have them. And then you can put those stepping stones in place to achieve that goal. So that is definitely my motivation. And of course, athletics is my sport, so I am a little bit biased.
You said you're not running anymore. Do you still run as a hobby, or have you just completely stopped?
Just about run for a bus, Elliot. No, I do go out for the odd run now and again, but I tend to stay indoors at the moment for obvious reasons and do general fitness indoors. But I absolutely do not miss the cold winters out there doing cross country and in the mud and so forth. But I do miss the sport and that high level of high performing and the Olympic Games and all those major events. But in answer to your question, just about.
Anisu, do you have any questions?
Yes. Can you tell us a bit about your background and when your passion for sport first started?
Yeah, sure. Well, I started my athletics career at the young age of 8 years old, many moons ago. I was more or less catapulted into the sport, not only from my parents who love sport. My sister was an athlete herself, but also my primary school teacher identified a talent in me. And I'll always remember her words. She was just fantastic, Miss Hughes. She'd always tell me to be determined. And there was a tree at the end of our playground, and she'd just say, just aim for that tree. Do not look left, do not look right, just keep looking forward. And that has just absolutely stuck with me through my world of work, is just keep moving forward. So from the age of 8, I then joined my local club, Croydon Harriers, which I'm still a life member of. They couldn't get rid of me, more or less. And a great club in itself in terms of their inclusive behaviours, how they were with me, helped me develop, not only as a sports person, but as an individual, because I was extremely shy at that age. And then progressed through to represent my county, which was Surrey, and then England, and then of course Team GB at Olympic level. But it was definitely a journey, and I was very quickly labelled the grandma of athletics because of how long I stayed in the sport, but not because I've got grey hair.
As the only girl in my sports class at school, I feel that a lot of young girls still have sport is for boys attitude. How do you think we can encourage more young girls to take up sport, especially as I feel that the skills I'm developing through playing football will be useful in other areas of my life in the world of work?
That is a fantastic question, Anesu. Absolutely amazing. Well, I think first and foremost, the fact that you're doing it, you're the role model, you're paving the way for other girls to get into sport. And I hope one day we won't be saying ladies football, we'll just be saying football, and that's it across the piece. I think role models are really, really important. And as I said, Donessa, you're a role model. You may not even realise that. But it's for me as a Black woman in sport myself, I just need to get out and spread that message that anyone can do whatever they want to do, as long as they have that will and ambition to do so. So it really is down to the athletes themselves who are in sport to pave that way for youngsters coming through and create that environment and be positive with those messages.
Yeah. Thank you. What is one moment in your life that you will always remember?
Oh my gosh, what a question. One moment I'll always remember in sporting or anything?
In sports.
Sport, okay. That's a difficult one because there have been some great memories, some not so great, when I was injured, for example, not being able to train or compete at the level I wanted to. But of course, the successes, and both of them, both the negatives, the sad times, the ups and downs throughout my career have helped me be the person that I am today. But I guess the memorable moment, because it's always mentioned, is the Olympic Games 2000 when I made the final. Everyone remembers Kathy Freeman in that race, who I had the great opportunity of training with. And I always say, to be the best, you need to be around the best. Surround yourself with people that are positive and great role models. So yeah, I think the Olympic Games 2000 is one of my greatest memories.
Do you still practice even though you aren't competing in sport professionally? And if so, how important do you think keeping active is for the body and the mind?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I mentioned to Ellie, I rarely go out and go for a run as much as I used to, or do the training sessions I did when I was a professional athlete. But it's so important to stay physically fit, because it's good for the mind, especially now. Go out for a walk where you're stuck indoors. We're still in lockdown. It can be really stressful on the mind, and a lot of pressure and stress, anxiety, all of those things that are not good for you. So staying active is brilliant, not just from a physical perspective, but definitely from a mental perspective. And that could just be something just as walking around the block, just getting out, get some fresh air and do something that you enjoy. I think it's important to find something that you enjoy doing. There's nothing worse than doing something that you don't like doing. You've got to enjoy it. So find that thing that works for you.
Thank you. Would you like to ask any questions? You're muted.
Yes, sorry. I imagine the road to the Olympics was full of sacrifices. Did you have to make any sacrifices? Did you have to make any sacrifices to become an athlete at your level, and do you regret any of them?
I definitely don't have any regrets in life. I think I've always been that way. Things happen for a reason. I think you can just learn from any mistakes that happen throughout life. But the journey to an Olympic Games, I've been to 4 Olympic Games, and of course they happen every 4 years. And in between, in athletics, you have other competitions that happen that occur, such as World Championships, European Championships, Commonwealth Games. So it's not just every 4 years that you show up for an Olympics. There's other competitions. So it is quite strenuous for us as track and field athletes, I'll say, more than any other sport or any other nation, in fact. Like, for example, America won't have the championships every single year, so they do have that time to rest. So in terms of sacrifices, yes, I absolutely had to sacrifice the friendships. Those who didn't quite understand what I was doing. I soon realized who my real friends were. And I can probably count my friends on one hand, because those are the ones that knew if I was away for 2 months or a certain amount of time training, then they knew when I came back, then we could pick things up and conversations like I was around the day before. But those who didn't quite understand what my goals were and would support me, they dropped like flies, and I didn't need them around me. So definitely friendships, I lost a few, and I don't mind that. That's absolutely fine. But also my family, I missed out on a lot of family occasions, which I'm sad about, but my family is quite large, so we always made up for it afterwards.
Just quickly, somebody asked in the chat, how many races do you think you've done? And out of those races, how many medals do you think have you won?
Oh my goodness, that is a really tough question. And my maths isn't great. So if there's any mathematicians out there, then you can try and work this out. So an athletics season, so we'd only have a month off after the summer season. So say that ended end of August, and we'd start back the 1st of October. So then you're training for the indoor season, which would kick off around December/January. So we'd be competing from then almost every single weekend up until March. And then you have a couple of weeks off, maybe 3 or 4 weeks off. And then the summer season starts again. So that runs through pretty much from April through to September. And again, you're racing pretty much every weekend, sometimes during the week as well, and fitting training around that. So if you work out the maths with that, I'd be interested to know how many races in a year that was. And then you need to multiply that by the number of years I was a professional athlete, which was around 22 years. So there you go. That's a question back at whoever asked that question.
Somebody else asked, is there a certain book that helps you influence your career and help you go a certain direction?
Not a book, but I'm one for positive affirmations. I love positive quotes. I post so many on my Instagram page that uplifts me, hopefully uplifts others. I think it's really important to have that positive mindset. Everyone has down days, let's be real about it, but it's whether you choose to stay down or you get up and move on and put that negativity to bed almost and forget about it and move forward and learn from it.
Have you ever nearly given up after a race?
I've never, ever given up after a race. When I think the only time that I thought about giving up was when I was injured. You can't predict how quickly you're going to heal or when you'll get back. And I had a horrendous injury, an Achilles injury, which spanned over it was a bit longer. It kicked off in 96, but I was able to manage it. But by 2001, it had enough. It was like, Donna, I've had enough. My Achilles actually spoke to me and said, had enough, can't keep pushing your body this way. And I had 3 surgeries on my Achilles. And when you think you're going in for 1 surgery and it ends up being 3, I didn't see light at the end of the tunnel whatsoever. And there was that that little snapshot of doubt that I wouldn't get back. But yeah, an incident happened where I was watching athletics on TV when I was in hospital with my last operation. And up until then, I'd absolutely refused to watch athletics on TV. And I thought, actually, let's have a think, because athletics was on TV, and I thought, let's watch and see how my teammates are competing, and of course my opponents as well, and my rivals. And I was watching it, and Sally Gunner and Roger Black were commentating at the time, and they were talking about the state of 400 meters and spoke about myself and my previous teammate. And he said, so where is Donna now? And that just sparked instantly. Right, I am going to show you, I'm going to come back. And I worked so hard. And, you know, it seemed negative at the time, but it's what I needed, a good kick up the backside almost, to say, don't give up. So, you know, I trained hard, and then a year later I made my 3rd Olympic Games. So it just goes to show that self-belief can be so powerful.
How do young people enter the behind-the-scene world of management and administration? What are some skills you believe are needed for these fields and the pathways into them?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a true believer of thinking outside the box, and sometimes opportunities won't be put in front of you, so you have to create those opportunities. I am one of those that definitely believe in, if opportunity doesn't knock, you make your own door and you knock that door down yourself. So I had never envisaged that I'd work back in the sport at all. I moved away from the sport, but while I was working at EDF Energy, I kept my fingers in the sport pie, as it were, and just looked for opportunities and roles on boards, on committees, anything that could help upskill me for my future. And sometimes it was the case of these opportunities not being in front of me. It was me taking that first step to write to these organisations and say, this is what I'm interested in. Is there an opportunity that I could shadow someone or speak to someone who's already on those committees or in those positions, just to understand? So mentorship is huge. There's no reason why young people can't achieve and just push forward and think outside the box. So if, say, for example, I know Elliot wants to get into the film industry, get on LinkedIn, see who's doing the jobs you want to be doing in the future, and see how they move, make those connections, ask the question, would you be interested in being my mentor? What's the worst that can happen? They can say no, but they could also say yes.
Sports is also capable of acting as a great equaliser, allowing children and adults from disadvantaged backgrounds to gain a voice on a national and sometimes international scale. What more can be done to help people from disadvantaged backgrounds achieve in sports, both on the field and in the behind-the-scenes roles?
Absolutely. And there's so many opportunities within sport, both on the field of play and off the track, in my case, in athletics. I know Sport England have just launched their sport-wide strategy around tapping into, and I hate using this term, hard to reach communities, because they're not hard to reach. You just need to find innovative ways to connect. And that's really important, because I'm a true believer that everyone has some talent. They may not have been able to identify that at this stage, but that's my role. That's the sporting body's role, to try and identify that. And as I said earlier, creating those opportunities and be visible, what is actually possible, and get those conversations going and understand what young people want to aspire to be, and creating those opportunities. So yeah, I do believe that where there's a will, there's a way, and it's for NGBs and other sporting bodies to put those things in place.
Somebody in the chat asked what job opportunities are available other than being on the track and field.
In athletics, I assume. Oh my God. I'll give you a story. When I first joined UK Athletics, I went to a careers fair in Birmingham. And myself and my colleague were there with our, I say uniform, I had this on with my British Athletics emblem on my top with our banner, and we were there. And not many people approached us. And we were like, what is going on? Anyway, a lady walked past and she said to us, I can't run, jump or throw. There's no job there for me. And I said, actually, you're wrong there. Come and have a seat. Let's have a chat. So we had a chat about her skill set, and she had an HR background. And I was thinking, so you really honestly believe that UK Athletics do not have an HR team? Oh, really? Yes, we do. We have a finance team, we have a procurement team, we have team management who take the athletes away when they're going on competitions. So we have that big cohort of team management there. We have an events team. So if you are interested in how events are put on, so event management, of course, within my remit, equality, diversity, inclusion, which is linked to human resources. And there's so many opportunities. We have an IT department, so if there's technology that you're interested in, absolutely. And as I mentioned, there's finance as well. So how on earth are we going to pay our bills if we don't have a finance team to manage our bills and finances and our flow of money within the organisation? So absolutely, like any organisation, just because it's sport, we do need that organisational structure behind it that looks after the athletes as well.
And what do you think of anybody watching, the main steps we could take right now to get into these positions would be?
Oh gosh, well, with the roles don't come round very often, that's number one. But I think what's really important is that mentorship. If you can find a mentor who's within these organisations that you're interested in, they can help you upskill in the areas. So when these roles do come up, they will champion you as an individual to go for these roles. So you're almost getting an inside view of what is available rather than having to wait when these roles are publicly advertised. And of course, it will be a fair process, but you might just have that day or two ahead of anybody else before it goes live to the general public. So I think mentorship is really key, because then you're already getting those that insight, some background, some coaching from your mentor to help you be prepared for future roles.
Mm-hmm.
How inclusive do you think the world of sport is, both in front of the camera and behind?
Well, I think sport, I can't speak for every single sport, because there's some sports that need to be, their practices really do need to improve. For athletics, which I can absolutely talk about, the sport itself is extremely diverse. We have a Paralympic team, as you know. The disability is covered, definitely. There's different colours, creeds, sizes. Our disciplines that we offer is extremely diverse. Within the organisation, it doesn't quite replicate or represent the sport that we serve. So we are doing a huge amount of work in that space, because what we're hearing from our athletes and our athletics family is they want to see people that look like them on the board, in senior management positions, not only just from a visibility perspective, but someone who can identify and have that diversity of thought, how they think, rather than it being that group think. So we've got some work to do. We're not perfect, but we are definitely getting there, and we are making some positive decisions in terms of positive actions moving forward. And as an example of that, we've just recently put out a job description, or a role is available as a non-exec director. And we've been quite specific that we want an individual who's female, someone from an ethnic background, and some understanding of sport, even better athletics. So we've been really targeted to ensure that we've got diversity on the board.
You spoke earlier about injuries and setbacks you'd faced. How do you deal with these, and what advice do you give young people about building resilience?
Yeah, definitely. I think my injuries have gone peaks and troughs. There have been ones that you can get over in a couple of weeks, hamstring strains, which is a given with any sports person. You have the odd niggle. I don't think there's a time I ever got up without some kind of niggle or something sore. But it's those serious injuries that put you out, for almost an entire season, maybe 1-2 seasons, which is really tough. And I can only talk about the experience that I've gone through when I was going through my Achilles problems. Is what was really tough was being able to, I had to be around my training group, because I was in my training group. We all had the same coach. And seeing them train and do the things I wasn't able to do was so tough mentally, because I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't go out and do the running sessions that they were doing. I had to just be in the gym or in the swimming pool, doing the rehab, the boring stuff, the tedious stuff. But then there was a light bulb moment where I thought, you know what, I need to take myself away from this environment and focus on me and just do what I need to be doing in order to get back to where I know I need to be. So I removed myself from that situation, spoke to my coach, and he was in agreement with that. And we just focused. It was just myself and my coach. We went through a grueling training session, but the only person I was focused on was myself. And at the same time, thinking of my long-term goal that I set when I was 8 years old, and that was to be Olympic champion. So those kinds of things just keep you going, get you up. And no matter how painful it is mentally, you just really have to dissect things and departmentalize the positives, and any negativity that comes in, just kick it right out. It's not easy, but it's a skill and it takes time.
For many young people, motivation can also be a real challenge with how much is going on these days. What advice do you give about specifically motivation at school and in the pursuit of a career?
Motivation, absolutely. You're not born with motivation. And you remember I said earlier that if you surround yourself with positive people who understand what your vision, what your mission is, that is important, because you will have down days, you will feel demotivated. But this is why your support network is so important. And there were times that, oh gosh, I've got to go training. But my coach would say, no, come on, Donna, get up. You have to think, because there's another athlete somewhere around the world who is getting up and doing that training session. And that would just spark me into action. I'm thinking, right, yeah, that's it. I need to get to train it and give 110%. So your support network is absolutely key. So if you're at school, I know it can be quite annoying, because I was at school once upon a time, the teachers being on at you all the time, do your homework, have you done this, have you done that? But it's for a reason. They want you to be the best person you can be, and they're being paid to do this job. You know, they want to do it. They're passionate about being your teachers. So it's important that you listen, take it on board, digest it, and think long term. In terms of outside of school, again, it's your friendships, it's your family. You know, my parents weren't too keen on me doing athletics when I first started out. But luckily, my sister talked them round. You know, this was for the benefit of me and being the person that I am today, the confident person. Had I not, I probably still would have been that shy individual. So it's thinking broader, not blinkered, thinking broader, but surrounding yourself with good, positive people.
Somebody asked in the chat if you ever thought you'd be this successful within your career.
So yeah, that's a very good question. From an athletics perspective, yes, definitely, because as I said, I set that goal from a very young age. There was no other way that I was going to see it. You know, if I did get beaten in a race, then I took those learnings on board, and it wasn't anyone else's fault apart from my own, not even my coach's fault. I probably changed the plan. So from an athletics view, yes, definitely. I always wanted to reach the absolutely top level. And when I got there, hence why I probably didn't stop until I did get there, and I still didn't. But injury and illness cut that short, and I couldn't control that. But from a working career perspective, it's only when I retired is when I started to plan again what my future was going to look like, because I was no longer the Donna the athlete. I was now going to be Donna the business person. And what did that actually look like? So having that vision board, seeing where I wanted to be, set those SMART objectives, you know, in my mind, this is what I need to do. And going back to what I said earlier, setting those stepping stones. What do I need to do? Who do I need to speak to? What environments do I need to be in order to get to that point? So I wouldn't say I'm so successful yet, because I've still got a few years in me, but you know, being awarded an OBE in the New Year's Queen's Honours was definitely amazing for me, and has given me another boost to move forward and do better.
Now that sport isn't your main hobby, what's took up your time in your spare time?
Eating? No, it's not. No, well, we can't do much now at the moment. Can you believe, this pandemic, now I'm not running anymore, that when I do have more time to do things. I absolutely adore being around my family and my friends, catching up, having a laugh. I don't drink alcohol. I'm rubbish. Everyone says, no, it's only because you're an athlete. No, I do not like the taste of alcohol. So I don't go out drinking, don't do all of that. I do like different cuisines. I love traveling. I love talking to people, having a conversation, finding about others and their life journey, because sometimes, you can tap into that and think that's so interesting. Many people, well, my friends do, they say that I'm just too adventurous and I'll do things that they wouldn't do, but neither would I really. But I think, no, actually, why not? Why don't I do that? So for example, I've jumped out of a plane from 10,000 feet for charity, which if you'd asked me now, I'm thinking, why on earth did I do that? But for someone to say, oh, Donna will never do that, that whenever someone doubts me, I'll prove them wrong that I can do it. So anything, life's too short. Don't ever limit yourself. If you want to do something, just go and do it. You never know what's around the corner.
What did you get your OBE for?
It was for equality, diversity, inclusion in the workplace. So the work that I'm doing now and community services as well. So originally from Croydon, I was awarded the Freedom of the Borough in 2018 as well for services to sport and the community. So during the first lockdown last year as well, I ran some fitness sessions for my neighbours. So we did a street workout for a few months, which was so much fun. Trying to give something back to my community is really important to me. And I've made some great friends on my road that I didn't even know lived there. And so I've widened again my network. And that's what it's about, widening your network, whether that's friendship, because you never know who can help support you in your journey to what you want to do in the future.
Do you think getting into sport at such a young age ever hindered you in making friends at school? No.
If anything, it helped, especially if you're good. Everyone wants to be your friend if you're good. No, it certainly didn't hinder me whatsoever. As I said, I was extremely shy and I had no choice but to make friends at my athletics club. So, making conversations, making new friends. It didn't, in later life, when I had to travel away from home, that didn't bother me in the slightest, because I was able to do that and make new friends. And I am a people person, and probably sport has made me who I am without a doubt today.
If you could give some advice to your 14-year-old self, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, don't do 400 meters. Advice to 14-year-old. Now I have to think now what I was doing at 14-year-old. Oh, right, okay. So I got my first Great Britain International at the age of 13, and I can imagine I was over the moon with that. So if I think about my mindset then, I thought I'd made it. I thought I was Olympic champion just putting on the vest, but little did I know I had a long way to go. So I guess the advice I would give is don't rest on your laurels. You can always do more. I was in my comfort zone then. I was winning races all the time. And then when I was catapulted into senior level, it was a bit of a shock because I know it was no longer the quickest. So I think just thinking outside the box, push those boundaries always. Don't set your limits too low. Always aim high. So that would be my advice.
Someone in the chat asked, were you good at school academically, and what was your favourite subject?
I had to be. My parents, as I said, were not too keen on me getting into athletics because they knew they was like, athletics is not going to pay the bills. You need to be a doctor, a lawyer, or some sort. So I was adamant I was going to prove them wrong and could do both. I could do my athletics and do well at school. My favourite subject at school was English. I wasn't very good at art. at all. I wasn't good at maths. I just about scraped through that. But after I left school, I went into travel and tourism because I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to be an air hostess because I thought that was brilliant, fantastic. And then I realized how much work went into it and all those hours you need to be awake and serving people. So that put me right off. So I did go into the travel industry for a number of years, working for a tourist office, which I absolutely enjoyed. So again, that correlation of traveling, being around people, very similar to the life of an athlete. So those transferable skills are really important.
What about your current role do you enjoy the most?
Again, people. I just love helping others progress, because I know that when I was moving up the ladder through my career, having a support network in the working environment was really important to me. So if I can pass that back to other women, especially to get into leadership roles, I think that's my duty to do so. I love seeing the impact of the work that I do on others, and just generally just seeing people feel happy in the workplace and that sense of belonging, feeling valued, that reward and recognition for good work, and just recognizing that if they need support, that we can put something in place. And you know, right now is a prime example around mental health, working from home, feeling quite isolated, not being able to see your colleagues or having that coffee by the coffee machine is really tough. So creating different initiatives that we can still keep that working environment going, although it is online, but knowing that my staff have got the support and we can put some things in place to make sure that they're being productive still.
Is there anyone within the sports world who's inspiring you right now, and who inspired you when you were growing up?
Right now, well, this is going to really sound like a cliche, but it so is not. I get inspired every single day, especially by young people that I speak to, and just hearing the backgrounds from Anesu and Elliot. I get a buzz. I much prefer working with young people than I do adults, because you're our future, and you, Daniel, didn't get an opportunity to hear your background, but I'm sure you're going to do great things. But young people inspire me because I see so much of me in all of you. You know, you want to do great things, and I'm sure you will. So from a sporting perspective now, not so much really, because that's not my remit. But as an athlete growing up, I had a number of role models. One was Jesse Owens, 1936, getting all those gold medals in the environment that he was in, having to tackle racism. Obviously, Martin Luther King, for obvious reasons. And a lady called Wilma Rudolph. She had polio at a very young age and was told she would never be able to run, let alone walk. But she proved them wrong and got Olympic medals. So she had quite a tall stature like myself. And as I said, you know, that visibility piece, seeing people who look like you and aspire to, it's great to have those role models.
Lastly, the last 12 months have been a real challenge for many people, and especially young people, gone through a very unique set of challenges throughout this year. And a lot of us are worried about our futures, and a lot of people are struggling with their motivation. What is like one piece of advice you could give just right now to help with that?
Yeah, I mean, even I myself, I'm getting so bored of seeing the same four walls every day. It's like Groundhog Day. But you know what? One thing that keeps me going is control the controllable. There's certain things that we cannot control, but there are things that we can. And that is our motivation. That is getting up and doing some exercise. That is eating the right thing. That is drinking enough water so you're staying hydrated. It's all of those things you can control. Make them good. The uncontrollable, what can we do about it? We can't control how this pandemic is going to pan out, but we can only control what we can. So that's definitely what I would pass on.
Okay, and that will bring us to the end of the session. Thank you, Donna, for sharing your experience and advice with us, and thanks everyone for joining. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.